What's going on, gamers? We got an interesting topic to cover here. We're going to respond to MBG's question as well, but mainly it's going to be about how the PlayStation 6 is going to embarrass the Steam machine and Xbox Helix. But hold on here. I think with the way the Steam machine is going too, by being over $1,000, the Xbox Helix may end up embarrassing it as well, just because price point value and at least having Xbox games that are going to run significantly better than the Steam machine. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I don't know why I want to do that. And I'd be able to play Half-Life 3 on that. Not to say that I'm getting it, but I mean, if you're just thinking about that, why would I want to get a Steam machine to play Half-Life 3 if I can play it on the Helix at much higher settings? But the PlayStation 6 is going to be the one that's going to embarrass both of them. Because not only is it going to have all of the Xbox games, but it's going to have exclusives and games that are going to be cross-platform on PS5. And the thing here is too, is that not only that, I think that Sony's next-gen controller is going to be something interesting. I think they're going to have next-gen features that are going to be very interesting. They already have an amazing share play system, but the idea of cloud computing enhancements, meaning that all I got to do is download this small little portion of the game and I'm right on the go and I can save myself storage space, right, is going to be attractive. And you'll have 1 terabyte right off the bat. But that's going to be like having more if the cloud system actually works that way. And I believe that's not only it, Sony's going to have some more next-gen features that are going to be very attractive. We know what happened when the Series X launched and the PS5 launched. The Series X still had a last-gen dashboard and just features. The PlayStation 5 actually had a next-gen UI, which was very attractive. Oh yeah, it was. And I think Sony's going to have some more things, like I said, that they're going to have up their sleeve. So we got a lot to talk about when it comes to that. And then MBG asking, do you think Sony will talk about PS6 in any capacity at the upcoming State of Play? I don't think they will. But what I think you can see is that the games that are going to be coming out that are going to be exclusive only on PlayStation 5 going forward, like a lot of PS5 classics, revivals, and the next-gen single-player games, are going to be getting the cross-gen day one upgrade on PlayStation 6 with PSSR 3. That's another thing that is going to be like, okay, so Sony has all that going for it, plus all the Xbox games. And not only that, it's going to be a lot cheaper. There's no way Sony is going to be thinking in the same ballpark as Microsoft or Steam when it comes to hardware, because 60% of the PlayStation company, or 60% of the Sony company, is now PlayStation. So they need that hardware to be very attractive. That's why they're not sharing their games. You need an identity. Plus, that's the best way to play the game anyways. That's where things get more interesting. Oh, this team over here is on fire. This team over here is on fire. They're really doing it. So let's see how on fire is versus this fire. And, you know, this has been a sports thing forever. But just in general, when the 360 was going against the PS3, you can't tell me that wasn't fun. You know what I mean? Yo, Nintendo won in the background, and with the DS hitting 154 million or whatever, they just completely dominated. 256 million install base is insane. Historically, that is never happening again. It was just absolute madness. On top of what the PS3 was selling towards the end, and the 360 from the beginning to the end being cheaper as well. It was just like, you see, that's competition at the highest peak, and it was absolutely amazing. And there was no stupid free-to-play games and microtransactions. It was real gaming. You were selling that well because games were really good from beginning to end. Nobody was super obsessed with 60 frames per second. No, you were about, I'm having a really good time. I'm loving the multiplayer competitive worlds too. Online was free on PlayStation 3. Online was free on the DS and the Nintendo Wii, but online was not free on the 360. But I find it funny during those times, people were not combating that and not realizing that. Okay, so now let's get back to the PS6 though. Here's my thing. That's something that I think no matter what anybody says, when Sony drops it, it's selling out instantly. Because people know that they're going to be making a jump from the base PS5 to the PS6 with an exclusive identity. And with a lot of features that are going to be very attractive. You could just imagine all these games coming forth. On top of being more powerful than 90% of the PCs on the gaming market. I've said this before in my other videos. You guys know what I'm talking about. I just don't see how the Steam machine is going to be attractive at its price when a PS6 comes out. We know the Steam machine is not going to be attractive at its price this year, with the PS5 Pro being cheaper than it, because I think it's going to be more expensive than the PS5 Pro. Even if it tried to match, I'm like, what are we doing here? We've talked about this before. You want to pull up the PS5 Pro specs, and you want to pull up the Steam machine specs, and you want to talk about a 512 gigabyte SSD storage trying to match the Pro's 2 terabyte, and then the GPU in the Pro blows it away. The CPU is better. It has 18 gigabytes of RAM. And it has all those games you're not getting, and it's playing them much better with PSSR 2, blowing away RDNA 3. What are we talking about here? And then we could talk about the Helix too, like I said. Okay, so let's say that you do have Xbox games on your Steam machine. Do you think that if that price range is close to the Xbox Helix, that somebody would want to go buy the Steam machine unless they're a Steam fanboy? You could just keep your account on your laptop, and you could move that around with you. You're better off paying that much for a laptop at that point and putting it on a 12-month plan at Best Buy and getting a deal. And getting something with like if you want to do AMD, I don't even know, AMD GPU laptops are very rare, but you have the CPUs. But what I'm saying is, like, you can go, by that time, yeah, you can get yourself 6070. You see what I mean? Or go for or the 7000 series when that comes out. You know what I mean? It's like, where are we at right now, right? 5090, 5080. The 6000 series will probably be out next year, right? You can go get a 6070. You see, at that point, that's what I'm saying. I don't understand why anybody wants to pay $1,000, $1,100, $1,200 or more for a PlayStation 5 build in 2026. This is where I say that Valve is losing the plot here. And that if you just wait a little bit longer, all you have to do is, even if you didn't want a PlayStation, the Xbox Helix would be a lot more attractive than that. It just doesn't have an identity, didn't have any exclusives. But at the end of the day, does Steam really either? If you have Steam on Xbox, you have the same access. Unless you're saying, I don't want anything to do with Windows. Well, then build up a Linux PC dual boot, or just straight up try that if you got another way of setting it up with an ISO or whatever. You know what I mean? You guys know what I'm talking about. But depending on what you want to do, Ubuntu, whatever Linux, there's a lot of them that you want to kind of go for. Or if you're in the Mac world, like I said, you can get the M4 Max. You can get the M5 is out now. You can get the M5 Pro and M5 Max, and you're right up there with a 5070. 58, you see what I mean? Yeah, it'll cost a little bit more, but their operating system is way better and there's way more secure. I have to tell you that from experience. And then Apple's going to keep on coming out with more stuff, and they're getting all the support now too. So you see, you have viable options here rather than overspending. Like, I would rather go get a PS5 Pro and a Switch 2 before I'd go get a Steam machine. I got everything I need. Right? We talked about this before. Why would I go pay, let's say the Steam machine 2 terabyte is $1,200. They got lost that damn mind. You can go get a PS5 Pro and a Switch 2, and you're right in the same ballpark. Who would think about doing that unless you're just some PC fanatic, or you have so much extra money you want to own all devices? Let's say you equally own all devices and you don't care. Okay, I don't have a problem with that. But if you're the type of guy that wants to play this PC high horse game, then I cannot take you serious. I think that you are brainwashed cultists. Because that's like me saying, oh yeah, then the Xbox Series X should be $900 then, right? And the PS5. And even then, it's going to be more expensive than that. You see what I mean? It starts to get insane. The Steam Deck is already the most insane thing I've ever seen in my entire life lately. I'm like, this device here, weaker than the Switch 2, which is $450. $500 with Mario Kart, $80 game that you complain about. But you are going to go pay $900 for that weak handheld. It doesn't make any sense to me. We have to keep this up, guys, because it's like we have to put this in their face and say, this whole time you were talking, grifting and talking about the anti-consumerism of PlayStation. We've talked about Xbox too, anti-consumer, and we talked about Nintendo to the degree where I still don't understand how. I'm like, they're still the only company in the world that if you want a handheld, you can get physical. You can get a cart. PlayStation 6 handheld is not going to have physical. ROG Ally, it's impossible. Steam Deck is impossible. They're you see what I mean? It's the PC world. You can have a little card you put in there and download something, but you don't have physical preservation. The Switch 2 also can be docked to be more powerful and taken off. You cannot do that with those other devices. And they were only asking for $450, and you have an amazing ecosystem where you only pay $20 a year for online and using somebody's cloud. And you have all those retros on there that you could play online without having to do anything ridiculous and take it on the go, no problem. You see what I mean? And like I said, they already have more exclusives than all the other consoles did at launch. For $450, and they're going to have a lot more. And they're charging $49.99 now for digital games. You don't see that happening in the Steam world. Those third-party developers and publishers, when they put their game on Steam, you're not getting it for $10 cheaper. You're just hoping to wait on a deep discount sale. That happens all the time in the PlayStation world now. Those sales happen on Xbox, but not as much as the PlayStation world. And even the sales are now happening like crazy in the Nintendo Switch world, on Nintendo Switch Online eShop. I'm telling you because I look at all the shops and I'm saying, what do you have more than what's over here? Man, these PlayStation sales lately, the days of play, man, they've been absolutely insane. Insane deals. Games for $3 like Control Ultimate Edition. Sony has been doing that. The Steam is not the only one doing that anymore. So I'm trying to see what's so special about the Steam world that it's okay to charge $900 or $949, tax $1,000 for this old ass handheld, and for the Steam machine to be around probably the same price, actually more, because I don't see why they would sell the Steam machine for cheaper than the Steam Deck. Because they were complaining about SSD prices, not just RAM component costs. And then when I'm looking, I'm like, bro, the PlayStation 6 is not going to be $1,000. You're crazy if you think Sony's going to do that. Sony is not going to charge $1,000 for the PS6. They're going to try to get it to about $700. I can promise you that. The Xbox Helix is going to be more than $1,000. But if the Steam machine is sitting next to the Xbox Helix for that same price, then I don't know what to tell you about, because that's absolutely insane. Though, because of Steam enthusiasts and they think so much about it that it's all somewhat okay. Like, no, man, something is wrong with y'all, man, if you believe that. I don't get it. You don't have any exclusives either. You don't drop any games yearly. All you do is brag about getting a bunch of other people's games. And then you try to make and gaslight Sony, try to make Sony seem like they were guilty. But I've seen these comments in my thread when I said that Steam doesn't have any exclusives. What are you talking about? We have a whole bunch of indie exclusives and all this and that. Oh, okay. So you want to say that that's okay, that Steam consistently money hats all these little shovelware and indie games. But when Sony's money hatting, it's all terrible. And Nintendo's terrible too. Bunch of hypocrites, and they're full of shit. I'm telling you. Because I have to say this. I'm like, hold on. So how could Steam have all these games, never share Counter-Strike, never share Dota, not going to share Half-Life 3? That's exclusives, right? Oh, plastic boxes. Yeah. Okay. But it's okay if Steam does, and you have all these early access indie games because they're money hatting them, and they're not their games. But you want to make it seem like Sony owes you first-party games, when those are their games that they're making. Nintendo too. That's where I realize, are you really realizing how your mentality works? This is insane. Like I said, ever since that Steam Deck $900 price tag, you have no room to ever say anything. Actually, you have no room to say anything after NVIDIA, because you got them in that position. Same thing with supporting Windows. And look at Windows compared to Linux now. And the Mac OS. I just want you to think about that. How do you have any audacity to try to defend the PC gaming now? It's the most cooked. And it's a deep truth that I think people just don't want to accept, because you want to bring up, oh, I can do all this and that. Duh, man, come on, man. At the end of the day, what is the most cooked platform? PC by a mile. Not even close. Look at these NVIDIA GPU cards. And they reduced your capacity. Didn't they do that? They reduced the capacity of the GPUs. They didn't even give you your supers this year. But they're number one on the market and making more money now more than ever. They're not subsidizing. And they're feeding the AI. They betrayed you. And you want to go support the Steam Deck for $900, and that's sold out. So I'm trying to figure out how PC people that try to play this game would make it seem like they were somehow smart because they went to do that. I don't get it. So you tell me, PlayStation 6 for $700 or Steam machine for like $1,000 or $1,200? You don't have Sony games anymore. Now Sony has their own identity. It's going to be significantly more powerful. There's going to be next-gen features. You're going to play all the Xbox games significantly better. And if you did have some of those PlayStation games, they're going to play significantly better over there with PSSR 3. It's going to smoke you. I don't see how even you can match the PS5 Pro, because you're weaker than the Series X. And we saw how PSSR 2 is embarrassing Xbox. It became so irrelevant, they started jumping to PC. But a PC gamer needs to bring up path tracing. But how many of you actually have path tracing rigs that run 60 frames per second? Do you know how rare that is? Valve already showed the percentage of PC rigs. So you see what I mean? No matter how you spin it, you're losing that battle that you started years ago. And now it's coming back and slapping you in the face. Same thing with the Nintendo grift. Same thing with the PlayStation grift. The butthurt Xbox fanboys want the PC to join that. But you don't care much about them either because you don't look at them as original Steam guys. So there's two different crowds here that hate on PlayStation and Nintendo. There's the Xbox fanboys that lost the war, and then there's the PC Steam enthusiasts. Then there's people in those worlds that are not like that in general. But the funny thing here is that the only reason that's happening where they turn over towards them two is because those two won. And they've always carried gaming for the longest. Definitely Nintendo. Sony from a third-party standpoint and semi-first party and moving hardware and keeping a whole bunch of third-party developers supported the whole time. But because Sony wants to play that game, Valve is okay with playing that game consistently, though. That's why I say the hypocrisy and double standardness is out of control lately. Just like all that ranting against the DRM. But when did you ever have any physical games on Steam? Well, how long ago? Do you know how long ago? Why, do we really want to go far back? Want to make up an excuse? Why do you think people made GOG? GOG is there because Steam is not GOG. Hey, I'm just saying, I had to bring it up. It's pretty bad now. Let's just all be honest and say, if you want to pick your poison, go ahead. But do not try to make it seem like Nintendo and PlayStation is more anti-consumer than what's going on in the PC world. No. How, when you consistently give to the community yearly games and you fund up all these developers and publishers, Sony funds a lot of third-party projects. Nintendo consistently gives their games yearly, more than anyone. So many games dropping yearly for a long time on multiple devices. It used to be handheld and console simultaneously while being that innovative and having equilibrium across the world always. PlayStation is made some huge improvements as well too. Yeah, of course, you're always going to have some behavior that seems anti-consumer, but I can't for the love of God see how Steam lately is friendly. I'm not seeing it. So let me know what you guys think. Become a member if you want. Leave a tip down below. Like, comment, subscribe as usual. What I could say is, of course, pick your poison, play on whatever platform you want, represent whatever you want, but don't think that you're going to make it seem like it's better on the PC world when actually consoles now, since the PS5 Pro came out, is closing the gap now. That's why you had to move to path tracing. That stuff is over with now. If people are getting their 60 frames per second, they do not care. When a PS6 launches, I'm telling you, it's going to reverse the opposite. Same thing with the Helix. Now it's going to be like PC gamers have to catch up. So now you have nothing to talk about except mods or what? You don't have no World of Warcraft moments anymore. All that stuff died down. Sony is the one that had the biggest growth for Fortnite when that was the biggest game in the world. And Pokemon is still the biggest franchise in the world. I'm just speaking facts here. AGN out.